Ever since a baby, I've been trying to get away, trying to lock in the guap, trying to block with the pain. I'm a blind little boss, I'm on top of the game. I've been plotting a lot, now I'm tossing your bait. Yeah, my pops got caught, didn't lock them away. My mom fought hard, 5 jobs in a day. I'll be dropping the box, and I'm copping the pain. We off to the stars to a tropical place. So, yeah, I'm spitting it heavy, the mission is steady. Your bitches are jelly, I'm ditching the petty. You're digging for pennies, I'm itching and ready. I open my heart when I listen to Shetty. I'm bold like a boss, but I'm little like Debbie. I know what the bros, I got richer than Getty. I'm holding the guap and I'm whipping the Yeti, yeah, Kari can play with advanced moves. I'm fucking my girl and her man too. I'm taking the ball like the ran do. My soul is the one that I can't lose. I soak up the sun like a sand dune. I'm holding up love with the bamboo. I'm rolling the blunt by the candle. Taking the game, running it back without taking a drink. Yeah, I'm the one and I'm making a wave. Rolling the blunt and I'm blazing a J. I'm escaping the brain, go straight for the cake. I'ma take to the bank, now taking a break. I'm made for the race, I pray for the day. I wake with a bake in a great estate.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jay, that's Maddie, and it's time for some Sunday football.
Yeah, another Sunday comes around, Sunday of week 13, and we've really started to get an idea now of where everybody is in regards to power rankings and where they are going forward, how their playoff chances are. And this week, Jay, I thought it was quite interesting because there's not that many big games of great consequence. There's like the Eagles-Ravens game, I would say, is a big game of great consequence. And then otherwise, there's not really much going on in terms of big games, but there should be some very, very close games. And Jay, on Thanksgiving, there were some brilliant games with loads of talking points here.
We got fucked on Thanksgiving.
I thought the games were relatively close. I just thought they weren't particularly interesting, apart from obviously the Packers and Miami game, which turned out not to be close. Either, don't get me wrong, there was some terrible football played during them, but sometimes they're the most fun. And Jay, I thought we could start with some terrible football being played at the end of the Lions versus Bears game, where the Bears had the opportunity to take it to overtime, but didn't call a timeout, and Matt Eberflus has been fired. Jay, were the Bears right to fire Eberflus in season?
Yeah, they should have fired him earlier. They should have fired him in the middle of that fucking game. And I don't think they were going to fire him, honestly, until he got on the podium and said ridiculously dumb shit about his ridiculously dumb choices. And I think they were like, this guy is fucking I can't say that word anymore. This guy is dumb as fuck. I almost used that word we're not supposed to use because I'm old. Yeah, this guy is dumb as fuck, and we need to get him the fuck out of here because, I don't know. I feel like him and fucking Poles were sharing a brain cell half this year with what was – and don't get me wrong, Poles has done a good job outside of the coaching. The more I read into it, though, I didn't realize that Poles and Eberflus are like long-time, really good friends. So that's a bad choice right off the bat for a coach, too, because – Maddie, if I hire you as my coach, we go back 4 years now. I'm going to feel bad as fuck if I got to fire you.
Yeah, of course. I think if you're the owner, how much of the blame goes on Poles as a GM here? Because the squad that he's built from the squad that he was given, if you look at this roster on paper and stuff like that, is a really good squad, and he made brilliant moves, trading out of the top spot with Carolina. So he basically traded out of Bryce Young to get Caleb Williams and several other picks and DJ Moore as well. So that's been really great work. But how much of the coaching onus goes on Ryan Poles?
100%, because as everybody knows, the Halas family, George Halas, Hall of Fame owner and coach, the rest of the Halas family does not know football, and we've known this for years. And I don't understand how it goes anywhere else, right? When you have an ownership that literally stays out of it because they understand they don't know shit. Like, the only issue I've ever had with the way the Bears run their organization, because, like I said, they stay out of it, and I'm all good with coaches staying out of it, is when you tell your coaches and your GMs and your staff, you're not allowed to curse. I'm like, well, this is 2024, motherfuckers. I'm not sure how that's going to go over. But I don't think they should fire Poles, but I think that is the worst decision Poles has made as a GM.
Yeah, I don't think they should fire Poles either. I feel like that might be the only bad decision Poles has made as GM. Now, it is a pretty huge decision, your head coach. But Look, I don't think Matt Eberflus did a terrible job last year. Like, he got the defense back on track. They had no quarterback options. Like, I think that Justin Fields in the situation that he had wasn't the right quarterback for them and all of those kind of things. So maybe not a terrible job last year, but I think just going into this year with the way that the league is moving, if you have a young rookie quarterback and you want them to succeed, you need a young offensive head coach. That's just what they need.
And it makes it worse because if you think back, the hiring cycle was Kevin O'Connell, Jim Harbaugh wanted to come back to the NFL. DeMeco Ryans moved on to the Texans. Like, there was coaches out there, and you ended up with Matt Eberflus. That's exactly what makes it even worse.
Yeah, exactly. This is so for me. Chicago last year would have actually been the only place I would have picked up Bill Belichick. I think Bill Belichick in a big market is the kind of coach that you want who just doesn't listen to outside noise. Like Bill Belichick thinks, like he's just like, I'm just going to do the way that I do it. He's used to the Boston media. And look, New England, I don't think are a huge market team, but they probably have some of the harshest media around them just because of the way that Boston media works. Maybe New York's media because of the size of the market as well. Chicago media are pretty chill, but big market, so you get a lot of voices. And Bill Belichick would have been the perfect place for them to go. Josh McDaniels knows what a good quarterback looks like. He knows how to make a decent quarterback work. And that's why I think maybe they should have gone at the start of this season. But I think Vrabel being out there, like if you have Vrabel and you give him the offer of, you give Arthur Smith the opportunity to say, look, you can come coach under Vrabel and have Caleb Williams as well. That would have been attractive for me if I was the Bears.
You would have murdered them if they would have hired Arthur Smith. Just be real.
I would have murdered them if they hired Arthur Smith as the head coach, not as the offensive coordinator.
You would, yeah. You weren't the keenest on him in Pittsburgh after his head coaching stint either, though.
Yeah, yes. You're right. I would have murdered them if they took Arthur Smith, and I would have been proved wrong probably halfway through this season.
Right.
So
yeah,
that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. I would have been proved wrong. I'm now a massive fan of the Steelers. So yeah, I think they're definitely right to fire him in season, but they probably should have fired him at the start of this season. It's not something that they usually do.
Okay, I forget the dude's name off the top of my head, but he went from pass game coordinator to offensive coordinator to head coach in a matter of like 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what they're going to do for the rest of the season. They're just going to be They're going to be summing up their candidates and then interviewing candidates as soon as they can. Right, that's what they've got to go and do.
You know, there's going to be back channel conversations that they're not supposed to have with Brian Johnson's fucking agent, with Bobby Slowick's agent, with you know what I mean? There's going to be all these back channel, but you have to get permission for Vrabel. I'm sure they'd give it because of his he's not like a position coach. But you don't need any permission to talk to guys like Pete Carroll or Bill Belichick, so you can start getting those out of the way right away.
Yeah, you can work out whether Bill Belichick is the right. You can work out if Bill Belichick is the right guy for you straight away. I think he would be a really interesting hire for them. Personally, I'd want to go towards the young offensive coach position if that was me, and I was in charge of the Bears. Jay, they've got a quarter of a season to work out who they want to pick going into next season. Who do you think the Bears should be looking at as their coach for next season? Who would be at the top of your shopping list?
This is where we differ with what's going on and how they lost the locker room and players are pissed off. Keenan Allen even made the comment, we played good, or the players did enough to win that game. Mm-hmm. That was a shot at the coaching. I think you go with a guy like Bill Belichick. I think you go with the stable, steady hand, bring him in. You know he's going to be motivated. He wants that all-time wins record. So you know he's going to be motivated. That's going to take him a few years. And I don't think people are like, well, you can't have him treat fucking Caleb Williams like he'd treat Brady. I don't think you treat the first overall pick like you treat a 6th-round pick. I think there's a difference. I think Belichick's smart enough to understand that the players have changed. I don't know if other people have watched the Bill Belichick tour, But all the things we've heard from his players where it's like, Bill's a fun guy, Bill's funny, Bill's this, Bill's that, we don't ever see it. We are seeing it with him being on Pat McAfee, with him being on Inside the NFL, with him being on every fucking sports channel you can think of right now. Like, Bill's changing the perception people have of him too. I don't know. I think he'd be perfect. I think he's the perfect hire.
I also think that Caleb Williams can deal with that. Like, people think that Caleb Williams is some like Gen Z woke thing. It's a part of like what is in America now, where the way everybody looks at young people in America, the average young person is the same as like has ever been. It's just the margins are different, right? They are the average young person. It's just you don't see it on the margins, right? Like if you put like most people throughout history, it's just maybe there's a few swings, but Caleb Williams can take, like, in order to win, Caleb Williams will take that, to be honest. I think he definitely could.
I'm going to sound old as fuck, but I don't believe that this generation could handle the talking to and the way you were treated in sports or school that you were in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I think the way that the adults spoke to children then too wouldn't go over. I don't know. I don't know if you can motherfuck this generation as much as you could motherfuck somebody in the 90s.
I think you can if it shows that you're winning. Like if it shows that they win, I think that they'll get behind it, and I think that they can. Like I think there's a stigma around young athletes right now that I don't think is necessarily true. I think they're just as much about winning. It's just they're about winning, and then with more from a place of kind of like respect and tolerance and those kind of things. But it's still about fucking winning, like at the end of the day. So is the way that I would look at it. So if you show them that motherfucking them is the way to win, it's just I don't think everybody thinks that motherfucking people is the way to win right now. I didn't think that is the way to win football games. I think Bill Belichick, the way that Julian Edelman talks about him, it's more of a funny kind of calling people out way of doing things rather than just screaming and shouting at them for no reason.
Yeah, there is a lot of players though that didn't like Bill after he left, and even the one who played for the Eagles, not his brother who was for the Bears. But anyway, he said that playing for Bill Belichick was zero fun, and that's why he left and went to the Eagles after he won his ring. He doesn't hate Belichick, but the way he spoke to people, like I know there's a lot of people that didn't like it, and maybe it's different, and I know we make fun of it, but we went from suck it up and walk it off to I need a safe room because these words are offending me. So I think we're in a
just think that's the margins. I think that's the margins of society. I think it's all about the margins being able to speak more because of things like social media. I think most people my age still go suck it up and carry on. But then there's just a bit more of a line as to what is acceptable and stuff like that. So I don't think Caleb Williams, because he fucking paints his nails and shit like that, can't be called out. I don't think Caleb's soft
at all.
Yeah.
I don't think Caleb's soft at all. Yeah. And I think Caleb in that game actually in the fourth quarter proved that Caleb is good enough to put a team on his back. Like
100%.
Besides, okay, Caleb should have called that timeout, but I don't blame him because you got the coach in your ear.
Rookie. He's a rookie QB.
A veteran would have told his coach to fuck himself and call that timeout, right? Like Tom
Next
Brady
time that happens, Caleb Williams will call that timeout. Yeah.
But it's the same thing with that dumbass slide with Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy. Was that 2 years ago? Like, so Dak would never let that happen again. I guarantee you Dak would never. But I think Caleb proved us a lot in that fourth quarter when he took that fucking game over, and he's like, all right, guys, I got you. Let's go do this. And he did everything. Like, even if you miss it, you're better off kicking the field goal from right there. And with 30, I keep hearing 33 seconds in the media. I hate to be the nitpicker. It was 34 seconds if you call that timeout at the end. Even if you run a play in the middle of the fucking field and the play takes 10 seconds, which never happens in the NFL, you have way more than enough time to run up to the ball and spike it if you get the first down. If you don't, the rule is 16 seconds in the NFL to get your kicking team onto the field. 16 seconds. You would have had 24 seconds, even if you wasted 10 to get your field goal unit on fourth down. I don't fucking get it. Run the fucking ball even. They don't expect you to run the ball.
Exactly.
Run the
That's what I
ball
thought
and
they were
pick
going
up
to do.
6 fucking yards and go spike the
Yep.
fucking thing.
That's why I think the biggest problem with this play was, right? One, it's veteran wide receivers not getting back to get back on side fast enough. And you can see Caleb calling them back and telling them to hurry up. You can see that. And it's veteran wide receivers not getting back and making that call, right? That's terrible. I
They
would have
probably thought
expected
you
them
called
to
the timeout.
Yeah, exactly. Call the time. Yeah, anyone could call a timeout on the field, right? Like anyone could have.
I believe so, but the veteran receivers probably were like, "Oh, we're going to call this timeout." Never even thought twice about it. And yes,
yeah, and I think one of the biggest issues was if you're doing that play, run the ball. Like if you're doing that play and you've got 34 seconds, you call a timeout on 3 seconds. A running play shouldn't take you 30 seconds. Get him through, and they're not expecting you to run the ball, clear out the middle, inside zone, run it, and you're just looking for another 5 or 10 yards. Because what they didn't do was ask Caleb Williams to throw it into the end zone to try and win the game. That's not what they tried to do. They're just trying to pick up the extra yards. I would have understood it more if they went for the game winner. Like, if that's what they were trying to do, then I get it. But that's not what they were trying to do. So run the ball, call the timeout with 3 seconds left, take it to overtime. Would have been perfect. I don't think Caleb Williams is at fault here. I think it's definitely on the coaching staff. I think, as you said with Caleb, they're never going to do it again. Like that's it. And I just think watching Caleb Williams, watching that receiving call, watching what the defense was able to do against a really good Lions team, I think whoever takes that job is in a really, really good position going forward. The one problem with taking that job is they're still the worst team in the division, even though they have all of that stuff because the division is so strong right now. I personally, if it was me, I'd try and take Ben Johnson so that I can get him away from Detroit as well. You get that double down there. Or I would take Vrabel. If it was Chicago, I'd take Vrabel, I think.
Yeah, see, I think Vrabel's great for your culture. I think Belichick's a way better coach. So
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Vrabel, you have to get the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator right as well, which is more coaching decisions for the Bears. Jay, just a final point on that game, talking about the Lions, because they did obviously win the game, but did the Lions show how rocky they can be when things aren't going their way?
Yeah, we've seen this a couple times this year now. Like, so they're not unbeatable. And I think a lot of it boils down to they put themselves in precarious situations with some of their coaching calls too. Like, I go back through that game and think of some of the shit they did, and I'm like, should that game even have been that close too? Right? So however you want to look at it, I don't know. But I think some of it boils down to it's a divisional game. It's always going to be tough. You know how to play each other. But it does also show that there is weaknesses. But we can talk about that with Kansas City. We'll get to it too, but we're seeing weird shit that leaves the door open for other teams against Kansas City. I think we're seeing the same thing with the Lions.
Yeah, I think with the Lions as well, I think they've had everything go there. Like in games where everything's going their way, they're unbeatable. Like they're unbelievable. But we called it in the NFC Championship game with the 49ers. They get to a place where when things aren't going their way, they go back to the same old Lions. That's where I look at it, and it's like the weight of everything that's on them, the weight of an entire city and expectation that is on them. And I know that this is really big stuff that we normally kind of just say, oh, it's really about the X's and O's. All of that stuff doesn't matter. But I think with Detroit, and I think it's the same with Dallas, where that history of we haven't been to an NFC Championship game in 25 years. I think it's the same where that starts to weigh on you as an organization. And when things aren't going your way, they kind of let things snowball as well. And Dan Campbell is a brilliant coach when they're up. I don't know if he's a brilliant coach when they're down. And in this game, they look down. They look beaten for me. In the fourth quarter, Caleb Williams is throw on the sideline. For me, they look beaten in that game, and they were lucky to get away with the win.
Yeah, because I think if they go to overtime and the Bears win that toss the way they were clicking, that could have been some problems.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the Bears defense played really well as well. Jay, one of the other games on Thanksgiving, everybody's turkey nap time game, was the Dallas Cowboys versus the New York Giants. Jay, did the Cowboys playmakers still make them a difficult team to play against? Because that now they've got 2 wins now. One against the Commanders, who are a really good team. 2 wins on the trot, both through their defensive playmakers playing really well. Do those playmakers really make them a difficult team to play against still?
Probably, but they don't scare me without Dak. Like, they don't. And that's kind of the problem, right? And then it's good to see Cooks out there, but I don't know how much, like, at the end of the year. I think you guys really need a real solid number 2 for sure moving forward.
Yeah, I think they look way better with Brandon Cooks on the field. I almost forgot that Brandon Cooks was out until he played that game, and I think they look way better. It's also really important to remember when watching this game, CeeDee Lamb went out halfway through the third quarter. So, like, our offense, CeeDee Lamb, they just sat him and rested him for the rest of the game because he's been beat up, and they saw there was no point of continuing. So we were missing the number 1 wide receiver there. But I agree with you. I don't think they're a dangerous team to teams that are actually good. I think they'll win games they'll win games with mid-table teams. Like, I feel semi-confident against the Bengals next week as well, because I think they have the chance to win games around teams in the same record, in the same realm as them, with their defensive playmakers. But I don't think they're particularly dangerous because they can't move the ball and the offense just looks so stable. I thought Mingo looked good. He didn't look 4th round worthy, but he looked good. I thought Brandon Cooks looked good, and CeeDee Lamb obviously had to go out. And Dowdle, first 100-yard game for a Dallas Cowboys running back in 26 games. So Dowdle with a good running game as well. Yeah.
It's one of those things where I feel like next year, and it's going to sound like a lot, but it's not as much as people think, if they address a number 2 receiver, a real running back, like a real starting running back.
Yeah.
And I still think you need to address that offensive line. And then nitpicking, add some depth at corner, and I think they're right back to where they were last year.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think a team that's got away with being blamed for the injuries is the 49ers. Like, everybody says for the 49ers, like, oh, injuries, oh, injuries, oh, injuries. The Dallas Cowboys are 1 game behind the 49ers. Haven't had their starting quarterback for the entire time. Haven't had a number 2 wide receiver. The number 1 wide receiver's banged up. Their number 1 corner was out against the Giants just then. The number 2 corner has been out most of the season, just came back up against the Giants. The number 2 defensive end has been out most of the season in D-Law. The number 1 defensive end has only just come back 2 games ago. And like, there's injuries absolutely everywhere. It's just the Cowboys have no depth, and we've known that about them for a long time. And that's just poor roster building. As well, with too many top-heavy contracts.
I agree.
Yeah. I think they played. I think they played really well in that game. I think the defense popped off the screen. Overshown, I think, is something else. I think Overshown is like really ready to take that leap when he gets a good defense around him as well. I think that that pick 6 touchdown play was fantastic. But Jay, the real question is, and it's on a lot of Cowboys' minds right now, if you look at Cowboys social media, Jay, are they playing well enough for Mike McCarthy to keep his job?
I'm not firing Mike. I'm serious. I'm not the guy who's firing McCarthy, but Cowboys fans look at it completely differently than I do. The guy's got you 12 wins every year, except for this year, right? And everything went
with
sideways.
All the injuries. Yep.
Jerry did nothing to help the team in the offseason either. And they want to play these fucking games with their top players, so then they don't have any cap room, so they can't add, as we said, Queen, Henry. Like, you can't add the king and the queen because you didn't fucking want to pay people.
Why has that not been around? Why is that not been around?
I don't know.
Great
it just
work.
came to me.
Great work. Yeah, we should write a blog on that in the off season, how the Cowboys missed out on the king and the queen, and break down about like that. But anyway, we can come to that. Yeah, I agree with you. Look, I'm not team like Mike McCarthy has to go. Like, I would rather they looked for something else, maybe something a bit more exciting in terms of the offensive coordinator side of the ball. What I have liked in these past few games is they're trying to get Turpin the ball. Like what I've seen the adjustment in their offense, and I'm like, oh yeah, they're getting the ball to Turpin in places where Turpin's going to succeed. That makes me have hope in the Cowboys offense in the future, especially when they have Dak. I think the offensive line has improved like throughout the year, and the Giants defensive line has been a really good defensive line, and I think they kind of kept them in check. So
Guyton
I
went
think,
down like he got fucking shot.
yeah, exactly. The issue is they're improving, but Guyton went down. So is Guyton? So maybe just Guyton's the problem. I
The
think
way
Cooper
he
Beebe
went
is
down,
the
though, he looked like he got
Yeah.
shot. I was like, what the fuck happened? I look and he's rolling on the ground. I was like, damn, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, I think with the offensive line as well, Zach Martin didn't play on Thanksgiving. Zach Martin was out injured as well, and they look decent. Obviously, Dexter Lawrence wrecked the game a couple of times, but he's allowed to wreck the game a couple of times. He does it against everyone. So I'm not feeling terribly upset about the Cowboys offensive coordinator. I'm just worried if McCarthy stays, then Zimmer stays. And the defense has got way better, but I just think that's in spite of Zimmer. I think it's just got healthier, and Micah Parsons will wreck a game no matter who's coaching. And I think it's in spite of Zimmer. So I hope if McCarthy stays, then Zimmer doesn't stay. That's where I'm kind of at.
I think you're going to have a weird holdout again next year, too, because I think Jerry's going to do the same shit
Micah
and wait until right before the season starts, and then he's going to pay him.
Micah Parsons, yeah, I agree with you. I think he's going to do some weird shit again. Hopefully he's learned from that. But at least the big contracts are on the board, like Dak and CD are on the board, so the restructuring and the cap might be achievable and things like that. Have to see what running backs are actually available. Or what players are available. It felt like the last free agent market was the free agent market where really great players were out there.
I don't think somebody will be able to steal Aaron Jones because the way it sounds that the Vikings want him, he wants to stay. We'll see how that contract works out because that was a 1-year deal. But you guys will be drafting high enough to go get that kid from Boise State. So
yeah, I was just looking up his name actually. Yeah, that's the thing. Like the Cowboys are actually playing themselves. The Cowboys are actually playing themselves into position. So people are really upset because they're winning games, right? People are really upset because they're winning games. And that means that we're kind of slowly getting outside of the crazy Shador Sanders chat and the Travis Hunter chat, which I think is a bigger deal, right? That they're working their way out of the Travis Hunter chat. That's I'm so glad that Shador Sanders won't be the quarterback in Dallas next year. I don't think I think he'll be decent, but I don't think he's good enough for all of that. But what I do want them to see is they're kind of working their way to a really good position to get Ashton Ginty, as well, who's they're working their way into the perfect place. So they could be drafting around 9 to 13, like in that kind of place. And you don't feel bad taking a running back there, whereas you do feel bad taking a running back if you're sat in the top 5, right? Like I
think this is one of those kids, though, when I watch him play, that I'm not mad if somebody like at 5, 6, 7 takes him. I'm like, okay. I mean, Adrian Peterson went at 7, Hall of Famer. Like, you know what I mean? So there's guys out there that are worth the first, like those high picks. Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, these guys were worth really high draft picks. There is running backs. And I think, so I understand the devaluing of running backs to an extent, but not to the extent it's went to in the NFL. That it's weird. Like, okay, you don't want to draft a running back in the first round even. I get that. But to act like a running back's not important, it is wild to me, because I think it was just Wednesday we talked about, if you look at all the moves at running back in the NFL, how many of them have changed life for those teams, like the Eagles and Saquon, the Vikings and Aaron Jones, even the Packers picking up Brandon Jacobs helped their team. These running backs that have moved around have proven that I think that the NFL fucked up and undervalued running backs way too much.
Yeah, I think where it is for me in terms of the running back is, if you're a bad team and you have a bad offensive line and you don't really have much going on for you, the running back isn't important to you. Go do anything else, right? But if you're a good team, or like even a middling team, but if you're a good team, a good running back changes life for you, like turns you into a turns you into a playoff contender. That's where
Look
I'm at
how
with him.
much better Dak was when Zeke was Zeke, right? Like, look how much better Dak was when Tony Pollard was getting 100 yards. Like, even good quarterbacks need, like,
Agreed.
it takes the pressure off. And if you have a young quarterback, you definitely want to have one of the better running backs. So that's another thing to look at. So if you're a team, if you draft Shador Sanders, you better make sure you have a good running back.
Yeah, I agree with that one. Just a final point on the Cowboys, Jay. I think everybody's kind of undervaluing the Cowboys now. I think it's quite popular to say the Cowboys are a terrible football team, but if you actually look with what they're putting out on the field now and the team that they have, like there's plenty of talent there. Obviously, they've just not got a quarterback at the moment, and they're missing a lot of injured players. And I think they're really undervaluing it. The Cowboys are 6-point dogs against the Bengals next week as well, which I think is a bit strong personally, just with where the Bengals have been playing football this week. So do you think that people have been underrating the Cowboys since it's fun for the media to shit on the Cowboys?
No, I think the Cowboys earned it this year with the you come off
Big losses,
3-12 win seasons and then you play like this, you earned all of that.
Yeah, I think the big losses to the Saints and the Ravens and the Eagles obviously smoking them as well. I agree with you. I think that maybe now, like 6 against the Bengals coming up, I'm probably going to take the Cowboys in that game if it stays at 6. But if it's at 4 or 5, I'm probably going to take the Bengals just because.
I think we're at the part of the year where we see the Bengals try to make a run. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So I agree with you. I think the Cowboys earned it. I think on defense they're slightly better than people realize because of the injuries, but on offense they're absolutely woeful.
I think they'll rebound next year, but I still think they earned everything they're getting from the media this year.
I agree with you. I like that they're playing hard now towards the end of the year, and I think they could get back to 7-7 in the next couple of weeks. So we'll see where they end up there. But Jay, just the final point in the Giants, they're woeful. They're the worst team in the NFL, in my opinion. The Giants, they're absolutely shocking. They were better with Daniel Jones, in my opinion. I got why they got rid of him, just to save that $20 million. But Jay, if anyone, who do you think the Giants should fire at the end of this season so that they can move forward?
Everyone.
You think everyone, GM, head coach?
Yeah, and I don't think Dayball's a bad coach, but I think he lost the locker room, so you have to move on. I think you have to just scrap this whole thing and start over. And nobody talks about it, but the Darren Woller trade looks like one of the worst trades because the guy got to your organization, said, "Oh, I don't like New York," and then just retired. You gave up good draft capital for him. I think it was a third. So I don't know. It's just showing bad decisions. And people forgot how old Darren Woller was, too, when they made that trade, I think. And
yeah,
the things they've done. And Thibodeau doesn't look like he can, like, he looks like he was a wasted draft pick. And so I think there's been some bad moves that I think probably, if I'm the Mara family, I'm firing everyone.
Yeah, I think that Joe Schoen, I think I could understand if he was to keep his job because I think his drafts have actually been pretty decent.
Leo, 2 times. What's up, brother? It's been a while.
Because if you look back through the drafts for the Giants of late, the drafts have actually been pretty decent. Thibodeau, I think, is good in spots. I personally think that the Giants have given up this season. That's the way that I look to me. I think in the first half they played pretty decent, but if you're letting the Cowboys run for 100 yards on you, that makes me think that the defensive line is given up. That's where I was. That's where I was at. So I'd have to get rid of everybody just to have a clean slate and start again. Jay, the Packers played the Dolphins on Thanksgiving night. The Dolphins got whipped as far as what I could see when I was watching the game. Jay, what is the biggest problem for the Dolphins?
I didn't think it was. I thought it was more overhyped than it was, but they're soft as Charmin, and those motherfuckers cannot handle cold weather. And then when I heard they were wearing fucking scuba suits under their uniforms, I was like, the fuck are we doing? The fuck, This is the NFL. And I just think that it, as odd as it sounds, they need good weather to win, which you're fucked in the NFL if that's the case.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you. And I hate when I feel like we're digging into these kind of narratives, where the narrative that all the shouty shows is saying is like, oh, they're just too soft and they can't play in cold weather. But unfortunately, they're kind of right on this one. Like that's the way that it looks, That's unfortunately the Miami Dolphins can't play in cold weather. If I'm the head coach of the Miami Dolphins next season, I am going to go to a cold weather destination for all of fucking training camp and just sit there in the freezing cold the whole time. The issue is it then fucks them when they get back to Miami because Miami's obviously much hotter, but then you have a week of training in Miami and you're ready to go. And if you lose the first 2 games, who gives a shit?
As weird as it sounds,
cold weather.
They almost should have traveled to Green Bay a week, like after their last week game, and spent a week here outdoors. I don't know what to say because I don't. As somebody who's I lived in Alabama, I've lived in Texas. You know what I mean. I lived in Wisconsin and Illinois, Michigan, and I don't understand how the weather change fucks you that much. Like, it's football. When you're actually playing a sport, you're not cold, right? So, like, I think it's mental. I think it gets in their head and they already think they lost before they get off the plane. And it's weird to me. And 23 is cold to people from Miami, but come here in February once, when it's -12 with a wind chill of -25, like, what are you going to do in the playoffs? What are you going to do if you have to go to Buffalo? You know what I mean? Like, and they're in your division, New England. Like, what are you going to do in the winter? I don't get it.
What's mad to me is they play in a division with cold weather teams. Like, they're the only warm weather team in their division. So it's not like they don't have any experience. It's like, oh, they played their, 8 or 9 games at home now. But then they play 6 games, and most of those will be in relatively cold weather to where they are. No, 3 games, and most of them will be in relatively cold weather. Like, going forward, I thought they played. But anyway, it doesn't matter. And I just think, like, guys, like, get used to the cold. The hits hurt more in the cold. That's the truth. Like, when it's freezing cold outside, if you're not warmed up properly, the hits hurt more. But personally, having played football in like Thailand and Vietnam and that kind of humid, horrible weather that is there, and running around playing sports there, give me -5. Give me playing rugby on a -5 day every single day, every single day. Give me that kind of weather, playing it in -5. Stay tuned.
Maddie, I love the tease. Maddie's like, stay
used to
tuned.
it. Okay. So for me, I'd rather play in that cold weather. So I think it was that for them, personally. I also think that McDaniels doesn't quite coach them right in game situations, but I don't think it's enough for that.
I think he needs to go.
Yeah, I maybe think he needs to go as well.
I love George Pickens. George Pickens is one of the best 50-50 ball receivers in the NFL. He makes 50-50 balls, 70-30s.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's in my fantasy lineup this week going into this game as well. So I think he's going to have a big game today. I think he needs to go as well, Jay. I think that the issue is I think he has set up a really good system in Miami in terms of the offensive side of the ball. I just think he's an offensive coordinator.
And it's only a good offensive system when
Tua's in.
Yeah, Tua's playing. So
yeah, I agree with you. I think he's a really great offensive coordinator. Not a head coach personally. Jay, have me and you underestimated the Packers? I feel like we regularly take against the Packers. Do you think we've underestimated them?
No, because I think that the Packers are middle road to a hair above average team. And I think that's how I've judged them all year. Like, I don't think they're top contenders, but I do think they're a playoff team. I think they're a good team. I just think they're going to make bad choices, because not the team, but I think you're going to see Jordan Love make bad decisions at worst possible times. I think that's the Brett Favre in him.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they're a playoff team as well. I think they're a top 10 team. Spoiler for later on. I think they just creep into the top 10, but that's the same kind of realm as the Packers, Atlanta, the Chargers, like those kind of teams. I think the Chargers are a hair better, but they're maybe playing a bit worse at the moment. But anyway, the Broncos are in that kind of range as well. That's where I think they are, and that's why I think we've ranked them the whole time. So I would agree with you as well. I just don't think that they're like this NFC contender that a lot of people seem to think they are. Jay, you have the opportunity now to pick how you think the NFC North is going to shake out after watching that game. Gives your NFC North from first to worst.
It's a lot going to depend on today. Today is a weird game because if the Vikings win this game, they're not mathematically 100% in the playoffs, but literally they are 99.8% chance to make the playoffs if they win this game because a million things would have to happen for them to miss the playoffs. So this is essentially a playoff game. And they all the NFC North still has to mix it up with each other coming here down the stretch. So the Vikings have to play all three teams. I think the Lions still have to play all three teams, and the Packers probably still have to play all three. So that'll be how it figures out. But I think how it ends up panning out is three teams in the playoffs. That's the only thing I can say for sure. Is that, like, my feeling is three teams make the playoffs with the Bears following up. I don't think the Packers can win the division. I still think it's going to be hard for the Vikings, but they can still do it. But you'll probably be Lions 1, Packers, Vikings in whichever order, and then the Bears coming up from, last.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. That's the way that I think it shakes out. And I agree with you as well. Three teams going through to the playoffs. So really exciting division, the NFC North, but maybe not the best division to be in.
Yeah, rough division.
Yeah, it is a rough division because you all play. The issue is everybody plays football in a really rough and hard style as well. It's not like three finesse teams. It's two teams that are like, we're going to beat the fuck out of you. And then the Packers who are kind of can beat the shit out of each other as well. So, yeah, difficult, tough division. And the Bears play hard too. Jay, the final game of the Thanksgiving, I mean, it was the day after, but whatever. The Chiefs played against the Raiders. The Chiefs came out with a win by only 2 points. Jay, is the NFL rigged for the Chiefs?
No, but I will say that was a very entertaining game. And the Chiefs, everything is bouncing their way. Everything. Everything is bouncing their way, and they find the wildest ways to win games.
Yeah, the NFL isn't rigged, guys. And if you think the NFL is rigged, you can either stop watching it or take it as it is and take it as it is rigged, and they do great scripts and all of that kind of stuff. Just shut the fuck up complaining because it's not rigged. Now, I could see why people think that the referees favor the Chiefs because of the narrative and the story and the great team and all of that kind of stuff. I can see why you think that. You're wrong, but I can see why you think that, right? The Chiefs are just getting the call and everything just bounces their way. They're just one of those lucky ass teams that happens all year.
I'm still confused because I'm a guy who thought I follow the rules pretty well, right?
Mm.
If the offensive lineman moves, how is that not a false start instead of an illegal shift? And if it's a false start, then the play never happened, so there can't be a turnover. So it's a 5-yard penalty. I'm not sure because we all watched the lineman jump up. We all watched it happen, and then they called the illegal shift. It was very weird, and it did make you almost feel like the ref had a bet in on the Chiefs, right? Like it almost made you feel like, oh fuck, I'm gonna lose this game. But I don't fucking understand the call. That's where I'm I think that's where people get frustrated too. And I think that's where the stupid narrative of it being rigged comes in because yes, 32 billionaires 31 in the Packers are going to get together and go, let's rig this shit so that when people find out, it kills our sport and we're not the number one sport in the world anymore. That makes so much sense. But I don't fucking get it. I don't get the
Yeah.
call, and the Chiefs just find the wildest ways to win games.
What I don't get is the lack of help for the refs. Like, they shouldn't need it. They shouldn't need it because we all saw it, right? They shouldn't need it, but they've made a fuck up. Call them, like, ring it in, like, just fucking ring it in.
That's
That's
the
where we're.
same fucking game where the
Yeah.
refs respotted the ball and kicked while we were at commercial. How the fuck did that happen? Like,
Yeah, it always amazes me that the NFL has commercial timeouts because I didn't know that. Because the way that I've started watching it on American services for the first time. I normally watch either Red Zone or the Sky coverage, and with the Sky coverage, if it's a commercial timeout, we go to like analysis. We go back to the studio in London where they do analysis of the plays that have gone on. We don't get commercials, so I just anyway. I forget. I forget those things with football. But yeah, that was crazy game. But the NFL's not rigged, guys. Chill out. Jay, where do the Chiefs have to improve? Because they have to improve, right? You can't just keep relying on the look of a bounce. You know, like where do they have to improve?
I just think they're going to do what they do. They're going to incrementally get better. Like, I don't know about anybody else, but I've seen Worthy get better as the year has gone on. I've seen him make better decisions. Granted, he's got to get better at knowing where he is at all times, dragging his feet, that kind of thing. But I've watched this kid get better. I think that's just how the Chiefs do it. They play the game, they see problems, they address the problems, they fix the problems that are in front of them, and they just keep it moving. And I think that's how we'll see the Chiefs just keep it moving.
Yeah,
and everybody forgets it's Pacheco's first game back.
Yeah, Pacheco's first game back went for 44 yards and a touchdown. You know, like I think Pacheco coming back, I think he's really important to them going forward. I think that Kareem Hunt did a great job, but I think Pacheco is just that like.
Well, now Kareem Hunt can play more of that slot when you need him to too, because he is a good receiving running back.
Yeah, and I think Pacheco is more of that metronome to their defense, like the guy that just keeps things ticking over, whereas Kareem Hunt is big play guy most of the time. That's where he should be. Whereas Pacheco is like, oh, I'm going to get 4 yards here, and there's not really much you can do about it. Like, I'm going to get 3 to 4 yards pretty much every fucking carry right now, and there's not much you can do about it. So, yeah, I agree with you there, and I think Pacheco's got this going on here. Jay, the Raiders play some decent football considering how terrible their roster is. Will they keep Antonio Pierce?
Yes, because Davis is cheap as fuck, and he is not going to want to pay 2 coaches at the same time.
Yeah, I agree with you. And look, I think Antonio Pierce does enough to say, I'm a decent head coach of a really bad football team. But how do you make that team better if that's where he is?
He's going to be the coach who they keep. They'll start getting better, and then they'll fire him.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you 100%. Like they're going to have basically they're going to make their roster better. They're going to do all of that. All of a sudden, you look at them and you go, okay, the Raiders could cause some problems here. And then all of a sudden, Ben Johnson walks through the door, but it won't be Ben Johnson. Whoever the Ben Johnson is of 3 years' time, like that's who's going to walk through the door as they're going forward. That would be a fun thing. Like Kellen Moore walks through the door, like that kind of coaching hire, right? Going forward. Right. I agree with you on that one, Jay. I think Antonio Pierce probably keeps his job. The Raiders played a decent game of football. But Jay, we're now moving into segment 2, and that is looking ahead to Sunday's games. This is the Week 13 Sunday preview, where we go through every single game that's going to happen on a Sunday, and we tell you what we'll be betting. We bet on the spreads. We tell you the spreads and we bet on them going into this game. And we're starting off, Jay, in Jacksonville, where the Jags are playing against the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans are 3.5-point favorites. Jay, are the Texans still AFC contenders?
Yes, this was one of my lock picks, and I'm still sticking with it. I think the Jags are dead, and I think we're going to see the worst of the Jags. And I think that we're going to see a team that's going to help Doug Peterson get fired.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not sure. I don't think the Texans are AFC contenders anymore, to be honest. I think they have too many weaknesses on their roster.
So-
I think last year they were just a year ahead of where they were meant to
So-
be, and then this year they're where they are.
Well, besides the Chiefs and the Ravens, like everybody
Bills.
else is in that mix of the next teams, and if the Chiefs and the Ravens end up having to play each other in the playoffs before the AFC champion. I don't know, and I still think there's enough talent, and I think once they're completely healthy, it'll be different too. But we'll see.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Bills, Steelers, and the Broncos are ahead of them at the moment, but not by much, like not by loads and loads and loads. So we'll see kind of where that shakes out.
The
Jay,
Steelers
who's
are a better
better?
team, but the Steelers could easily get beat by the Texans because
That's
the
true.
Texans have a more potent offense. Don't get me wrong, the Steelers could win that game too. But I'm saying like the Bills could get beat by them too. So I don't know. I still have a lot of faith in this Texans team.
Yeah, looking ahead at the game today, not trying to look too far ahead. Who's better, CJ Stroud or Trevor Lawrence? I think that's a really important question when we're ranking quarterbacks going forward.
I think Trevor Lawrence is more talented. I think CJ Stroud plays better football.
Yeah, I think CJ Stroud is maybe adjusted better to the NFL, right? I think much easier to do when you have a better team and a better core of wide receivers, like given, like 100%. But from what we've seen from CJ Stroud in the NFL, he has been better than Trevor Lawrence in the NFL. Yeah. I agree with you on that. I also agree with you, Jay. I'm going to take the Texans at 3.5 here. I'm surprised that this has been such a small spread. It seems like a lot of the money has been going on the Jags, actually, because the Texans have come down from 4.5 on Thursday to 3.5 today. So I think that's pretty crazy that that's the way the money's been going. I wonder why that is. Another spread that has come down, Jay, and I'm a bit surprised about it, is the Jets are in New York. They're going up against the Seahawks. The Seahawks were 2-point favorites on Thursday. They're now 1-point favorites here. Jay, I think this comes down to the Jets or the Seahawks. Who has the better defense?
I don't even want to fucking pick this game. Like, it's so like fuck this game. The Jets have the more talent, but they haven't been playing it. So the Seahawks probably have the better defense because we've talked about it a million times. I don't know what the fuck's going on with that defense in New York.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you on a basis. I do think if you look at Witherspoon and you look at Woolen on that Seahawks team, I think they do have a lot of talent there. I think the Seahawks defense is also one of the most up and down in the NFL. It can play absolutely lights out and it can play really poor football. I think the Jets do have a ridiculous amount of talent, and it's interesting that since Robert Saleh got fired, the Packers, where he's now a consultant, the Packers are 5-1 and the Jets are 1-5. I think that's an interesting thing that's going on there. For me, Jay, I think the Seahawks are playing better football on the defensive side at the moment. Jay, another topic of this game is, why are the Jets so Rodgers reliant when they have a great running back room? That running back room is there for them to use and they don't use it.
Because they have zero offensive line.
But then, if it was me, if I had zero offensive line, I also wouldn't use Aaron Rodgers. What are
you going to do? You're going to run the ball and get tackled for a loss every play, 5 yards back? The only chance they have of moving the ball is quick passes by Rodgers, I think. And I think we've watched that. Like, they're getting blown up. All these running backs are getting blown up in the backfield. You can't run the ball if you're taking a loss on every play, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I think what I'm looking at for them going forward is maybe those extensions of the run game, right? Screens to Brees Young, like screens to Brees Hall, like those kind of things, because they've not added loads of that into their offense, and I'm really surprised by that. I think using the running backs in more creative ways would make a big difference for them, and they just don't seem to do that when they have this running back room. Also, Jay, a final thing here is, and another quarterback is, Geno Smith's passing stats are pretty ridiculous. Are they a fair representation of his season?
No, I don't trust Geno. That's the problem. With the game on the line, I don't trust Geno. When they're behind, I never feel like, oh, Geno's got this. I feel like tied games or when he's ahead, Geno plays great. And then when the game's on the line and it's up to him to make a play, he just doesn't do it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one, Jay, as well. He's passed for 3,000. He's already passed for 3,000 yards in this season. I don't think that's a fair reflection of where he is at quarterback, and I think it's what's going to keep the Seahawks maybe a step behind where they should be, because they're going to keep Geno Smith because of that stat padded season that he's having. I think he doesn't choke, he just doesn't make it happen in big games.
Well, they're also in a situation, what do you do at quarterback, right? Like you're kind of in no man's land, and fuck, you're going to keep winning enough games where you can't draft a guy, and Geno's just good enough to keep you from drafting a guy.
Yeah, Geno's also just good enough for you to stop taking a punt in free agency. Like if you go, Sam Darnold, maybe we can make something of Daniel Jones, but Geno's just good enough to be seen as better than them to not take the bet on them. Jay, who are you taking in this game? The Seahawks are 1-point favorites on the road.
You know what? I've been dying with them all year. Just give me the fucking Jets. I'll fucking die with them again. Like
ride or die with the Jets.
I don't even want to take either team, but I'll just die with the Jets. I'm going to die on this fucking hill. Let's go.
I've been riding or dying against the Jets all season, so I'm going to take the Seahawks in this one. -1. Long-time watchers of the show won't be surprised by that with my bet so far this season. Jay, this is another one of your locks of the week here. The Commanders are 5.5-point favorites versus the Titans. Jay, why are the Commanders a lock bet after 3 losses in a row? 3 losses in a row. Why are they your lock?
Because they're playing the Titans.
Because they're playing the Titans. 5.5. The Titans' defense is pretty decent.
It's all right. I think everybody gives them credit, even when the Vikings play. I'm like, I saw a solid defense. I didn't see anything that made me went, whoa, look at that. Like, and I don't get, like, it doesn't even matter who you play at quarterback. Will Levis, fucking Kyle Rudolph, like, or Mason Rudolph, sorry. Kyle Rudolph used to play for the Vikings. But like, Vikings. Who gives a fuck? Like, it doesn't even matter which one. So you play Rudolph, less mistakes, but way less big plays. You play Levis, big plays, big mistakes. Like, I don't know. It's just, I think the Titans are just one of those teams that they'll cause you some problems for a little bit in the game, and then all of a sudden they'll turn back into the Titans and you'll walk away with the win.
Yeah, I agree with you on this one. I think the Commanders' defense has been really poor all season. Like, not all season. Actually, that's a lie. The Commanders'
they
defense
had a 3-game stretch against bad teams. So, yeah.
The Commanders had a 3-game stretch against bad teams where they look decent, right? And the Commanders' defense actually comes up with some big plays in the big moments when they have to get a stop, right? So coming up against the team where their offense is just prone to giving you the ball, because their offense actually isn't bad. Tony Pollard has been running for over 100 yards most games that he's played. Will Levis, when he cuts out the mistakes, is a big play quarterback. Like, he is a big play quarterback when he cuts out those mistakes. The issue is he doesn't cut out those mistakes, so he's going to give the ball to you. That's the kind of team that you want to play against when you have a bad defense. So I see that with the Commanders. Jay, you're still on the Commanders at 5.5, I'm guessing.
Yes, and I love the fact that a mail company gave Will Levis a sponsorship ad after Will Levis. I don't even know if this is true, but he did say it. I don't know. He says he puts mayo in his coffee. I want to know if that's true.
Yeah, that is true. That is 100% true.
Is it because he says he does not eat the peels on bananas? He was joking.
All right,
so
okay.
I want to know if he really puts mayo in his coffee or if he was just like being a smart ass and we all took him serious.
Don't do it.
It's crazy to say you eat the peels off bananas though and you don't do it. So I don't know.
Yeah. Will Levis is just a crazy quarterback.
He seems like he'd be fun to have a beer with. I'm not sure I want him quarterbacking my team.
Yeah, I agree. He's also fun to watch quarterback a team as a neutral. The NFL is better with Will Levis in it, in my opinion. Jay, I'm going to take the Commanders at 5.5 as well. I think it's largely Jaden Daniels, despite the loss against the Cowboys. That was a crazy fucking game with loads of weird shit happening. Jaden Daniels played his best football since the rib injury against the Cowboys. He looks much better. Give me the Commanders in that one. Jay, this is one of my lock bets of the week. The Bengals are 3-point favorites against the Steelers. The Steelers are 3-point underdogs against the Bengals. I'm taking the Steelers in this one. Jay, can you explain the Bengals' odds in this game with their season record?
I think the Bengals are going to win this game, even though I'll be cheering for the Steelers, because this is what the Bengals do. They play shitty and then they make a run. And I feel like there's way too much talent on this Bengals team not to figure it out. But this is one of those odd things where I'll pick the Bengals to win this game, but I'll be cheering for the Steelers the whole time I'm watching it.
So you're taking the Bengals in this game. You think they'll beat the Steelers by 3?
Yeah.
Okay, I like it. I like that a lot. I'd say that's a ballsy pick, even though you're picking the favorite. Jay, for me here, looking at this game, the Bengals defense plays perfectly into what the Steelers want to accomplish on offense. Like, the Bengals aren't great at stopping the run because they get no pressure. Like, on the defensive line, they get no pressure, which then allows Russell Wilson to sit back in the pocket and throw up 70-30 balls to George Pickens. And that's the way I see it. I think the Bengals are a perfect matchup for the Steelers. The other part of this is that Bengals offensive line good enough to deal with the Steelers defensive line? That offensive line has been terrible for years, and the Steelers defensive line is brilliant.
I think the way you slow them down is wide receiver screens, pitches, that kind of thing. And I think that's what we'll see. And I think you'll see T. Higgins get 3 or 4 wide receiver screens in this game.
Yeah, and obviously Jamar Chase is crazy. Look,
you can't wide receiver screen Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Hill, Tyreek Hill. I mean, he's so fast he might get away, but they're already so locked in on these dudes before the snap. You can't trick them with a wide receiver screen to these guys. That's why it goes to T. Higgins, to Jordan Addison, to you know what I mean, like to Waddle, because there's already at least 3 guys on the field who have their eyes on Jamar Chase every time the ball snaps.
The Bengals' best screen weapon by far, by the way, is Chase Brown. Like, Chase Brown is an excellent out of the backfield running back.
He's quick.
Yeah.
He's not the fastest guy on the field, but he's quick.
Yeah. He's definitely worth a team playing decent money for if you're already set. You know, like if you're an already set team, he's a really nice weapon to have. For me, the Bengals, this is a poor matchup for them, but you can't count out Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Like, you can't count those guys out. They've just managed to lose games where they've played amazing football already, and they've still managed to lose those games.
Even with their awful record, they're oddly still in the playoff hunt. So, like, this is where I think if they're going to flip the switch, this is where it's going to happen.
Yeah. This is where it has to happen as well, most importantly for them. Like, this is a gotta-have-it game for the Bengals going forward. Jay, your Vikings are 3-point favorites against the Arizona Cardinals. Is Murray the kind of quarterback that causes the Flores system some issues?
This game makes me a little nervous. They do decent with running quarterbacks. Like, they haven't gotten crushed by, you know what I mean, letting a running quarterback take over. But you have to keep your gap integrity. You can't let him out and make a 50-yard run. I think the Vikings will win this game. The Vikings don't win any games by more than 7 points because that's just not what they do the last 3 years. So give me the Cardinals to cover, but the Vikings to win.
All right, yeah.
John Parker Romo, game winner, end of the game. Me having a heart attack watching this unfold.
You need to get a Romo jersey for the Vikings, though. Like, that's
well, one, I stopped wearing jerseys when I was 27. I literally, on my 27th birthday, had tons of basketball and NFL jerseys and gave them all to my brother-in-law. All my LeBron, all everything. The only jersey I kept out of all of them was an Indiana Pacers Jalen Rose jersey because I was a big Jalen Rose fan when I was a kid. I still never wear it. Now, I have Vikings shit. I just don't wear Vikings jerseys. Also, any player I've ever bought from the Vikings is gone within 2 years.
I just think we could wear our Romos when you come over for a London game. We could wear our Romo jerseys together. But obviously, I'm
if your so-called liberal ass country would ever legalize this flower, it would make my trip a lot better. I'm just saying, like,
all right, Elon, slagging off the UK.
I'm just slagging off your weed laws. That's it. Like, that's it. I hear how liberal you are, but yet, like, I know they don't do it, but you literally can get like fucking 16 years in prison for having weed in the wrong place. I'm exaggerating the number. I don't remember what it was. It was like 6 years. I remember I messaged you like, the fuck is the weirdest thing I've seen. But like,
it's so strange.
I just don't understand. I thought you guys would legal it way before us, being that you're next to Amsterdam.
No, it's like a weird. It's such a weird fucking country, man. Like it's so strange. So it's this idea of like you've got loads of old people basically, and they just control the shit, right? Like we'll eventually get to that point, but it's bad for political capital to legalize weed at this current moment because we've got a bit of a culture war between young and old going on.
Now I don't want to get too political, but I got a fix for you guys. Okay. What do you guys call it? The HHS or what are your health services, right?
The NHS, National Health Service.
Okay, so you're bitching about not having enough money. Legalize weed and tax it, motherfuckers. You'll be amazed on how much money that generates for your healthcare system.
We're not allowed to tax anything, Jay. Not allowed to tax anything. The farmers have been parked outside of London because we've asked them to pay inheritance tax if they inherit over £3 million worth, £3 million worth of land. The rest of us have to pay tax on double the amount of tax on 325k's worth of property. But anyway, it's fine. Not to get too political on this show.
Right. I'm just saying, you want to generate enough money to pay for your healthcare system.
I agree.
I gave you
I just tax the fuck out of everything if it was me, Jay. I'm a massive communist compared to for what the states believe. Unfortunately, that's where I am. Jay, back to your Vikings. Who's the Vikings?
Say that you're a socialist because people already confuse socialism and communism over here. So, like,
I know.
Okay.
I know. I'm a socialist, but I know what that looks like in the States. Jay, who's the Vikings MVP so far this season? Who's been the MVP for you?
I mean, Sam Darnold. As much as I get on the guy, they don't win 9 games without him. It's the worst. It's the turnovers. They fucking kill me. Like, he fucking kills me. And I will say, at least, and I don't want to jinx him, knock on wood, at least his turnovers aren't at the worst possible time. Like, in the red zone sucks balls. That's got to change. But it's not at the end of the game when we're trying to win it. But it's got to be Sam Darnold, unless you're going to go coaching, because then I could say the coaches are the MVP of this team.
Yeah, I think I get it on Sam Darnold. I think he's, with the expectations of where he was coming into this season, like to where he has been, I think he's been brilliant. For me, our MVP is Van Ginkel, like 100%. The defensive work that he does is pretty insane. I think he's brilliant as well. Jay, just a final point. James Conner had his contract extension for the Cardinals. Good contract extension there for the Cardinals.
It's not bad. I don't like him as much as other people do, but I get that they're like, he's the sneakiest good running back in the NFL. I do think he's a good running back, but he reminds me a lot of kind of like Najee Harris, where I'm never sure where to rank these guys.
Yeah, I really like him. I think for a base salary of $4 million is pretty good. I think that's pretty decent. Oh no, sorry, his average annual salary goes up to $9.5 million, makes him the 7th highest paid running back. But I think a lot of running backs are going to start getting the bag again. You say that.
How much of that is fake incentives that he'll never reach, right? Like, exactly. I'm sure there's $1 million bonus for making it to the Super Bowl, and that kind of shit. Which, if that happens, you gladly pay him the $9 fucking million. Like, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Jay, I'm taking the Vikings in this one as the 3-point favorites. I've got the Vikings in this game. I think they're going to cause problems for the Cardinals. The Cardinals offense on the defensive side of the ball. Give me the Cardinals.
I'd like to see a 21-point win. That would make me feel wonderful.
Yeah, just a nice chilled out win for the Vikings. You know, that doesn't normally happen. So yeah, just a nice something
where I don't feel like I need Xanax and bongs to fucking get me through a game.
Yeah, something for your heart, Jay. Definitely a nice game to chill you out.
Yeah.
Jay, for me, the next game is one of the most exciting games of the season, of this week. Sorry, just because this week has got a lot of not so exciting games. The Falcons are playing against the Chargers. The Chargers are 1-point favorites. I've got a feeling that this is a meeting of an overrated team and an underrated team. I think that the Chargers are really underrated, and I think the Falcons are massively overrated going into this season. In close games, the Falcons haven't been great. Jay, what do you make of Kirk Cousins' first season in Atlanta?
I think he's exactly what I thought he would be, right? Like, I think he's playing just good enough to be exactly what we thought he would be.
Yeah, I think he's been really good in terms of like breaking down the defenses. He's been a huge improvement in Atlanta, and he's what's made people believe in Atlanta going forward. I think they're going to be NFC South runners up, and I don't know whether that's good enough for them to get into the playoffs. Is the issue with where the other playoff teams are coming?
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the teams from the South or the West, I think, are going to sneak in, but it's going to be rough. I also think the path got a lot easier for the Falcons this week. I'm taking the Falcons, and the number one reason is J.K. Dobbins on IR.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. That's a fair point going forward. For me, the Chargers have the best defense in the league. I think they're going to make a big move against
without J.K.?
I think so. I think you've got a decent pass game going on with McCarthy. I think that Gus Edwards looked bad, but I think he will look better going into this week, especially against the Falcons defense, who get no pass rush and they're not great against the run either. Give me the Chargers as 1-point favorites in this game just to squeak through with the win. I'll give you the Falcons in this one. Jay, a game that I'm not sure anybody's watching is the Patriots versus the Colts. But will we see Anthony Richardson's improvement carry on? Will we see his improvement continuing through this part of the season? Jay, the Colts are 2.5-point favorites.
I mean, you better see Anthony Richardson fucking improve. He's so talented and impressive, but the more it goes on, I wonder if he can be an elite NFL quarterback. Like, the more this goes on. But I also almost think this is a throwaway season with all the weird shit that's happened with them. And I feel like this kid's now had 2 throwaway seasons, which isn't always good for the start of your career.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you on this one.
I'm personally give me the Patriots in this game minus the points plus. I think that the Patriots will actually win this game outright, and I think that more questions are going to come of Shane Steichen as the season continues.
For me, I see Anthony Richardson continuing in a good vein of form, and I see Jonathan Taylor just having a really good game this week. I think we see Drake May kind of have a bit of a drop-off this week as well against the Colts team that runs a really well-drilled defense. So give me the Colts at 2.5 points on this one. Jay, big point spread in the Panthers versus the Bucs game. Jay, the Bucs are 6-point favorites. Who have you got in this game? Was the Panthers game enough for you to say that the Panthers was the Chiefs game enough to say the Panthers could keep this close?
No, that was an anomaly until you proved to me it was something different.
Yeah, I agree with you on this one. I think the Bucs are potentially one of the best teams in the NFC. I think they're a playoff team going forward, and I think Baker Mayfield might be an MVP going in if he gets them into the playoffs, if he manages to sneak into the playoffs and get there. So, Jay, I'm taking the Bucs at 6 points. Who have you got?
I'm taking the Bucs with the -6.
Yeah, I'm taking the Bucs at 6 points too. Also, big shout out to Bucky Irving as well, who I think has been one of the most impressive rookies so far this year, but I haven't been able to give love on the show yet because he's been great week to week, but hasn't had a great week compared to some of the other rookies that have been out there. Maybe we'll be seeing him in rookie MVP going forward. Jay, the Saints versus the Rams. This is both of our lock bets here. The Rams have had a bit of money put on them as well. They're 2.5 at our lock when we put them on Thursday. They're now at 3. I'm still going to take them at 3. Spoiler alert for everybody. Are you surprised by the Rams odds? What do you think the Rams odds are for? Why do you think Vegas is not keen on the Rams?
Because nobody knows what Rams team is going to show up.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they're such a young team, right?
Yeah, and being that they're young, their defense can be out of position at times, can make mistakes. But when they're on, they're hitting, they're young, they're athletic. But I think the Saints are still getting some love from the first 2 games, and then the last couple games with the new coach. I think that all comes to a dying end, and I think the Rams win this game by double digits, most likely.
Yeah, I was surprised by the odds on this one. The other part of this is the Rams have a really good young defense. They're possibly creating one of the better defensive lines in the NFL that are this young. But on the other side of the ball, they have a really veteran offensive side of the ball where they make big plays. Puka Nakua's looked great. Cooper Kupp has taken a step back as he gets a bit older, but he's still really good wide receiver. Tutu Atwell comes up. Kyron Williams plays great football. Little fumble problems here and there. And Matthew Stafford, obviously a quarterback. So I'll be surprised if they let this game go this close.
Where the Rams get me a little nervous is their offensive line, but Matt Stafford's smart enough to figure that out.
Yeah, definitely. And the Saints aren't exactly a huge pressure team either going into this game. Jay, the game of the week, this one, surely. The Ravens are at home to the Eagles. Jay, the Ravens are 3-point favorites. For me, this is definitely the game of the week. The question is the Eagles' run defense, which is vastly improved, good enough to take on the Ravens' backfield?
I mean, you're never going to shut them down completely, but yeah, they're good enough to make stops and not get completely blown away by Derrick Henry. And I think where teams are fucking up is they're letting Derrick Henry get a full head of steam before they're getting a hat on him. Also, an underrated stat, Saquon Barkley, 1,016 yards before contact this year. 1,016 yards before contact. Give me the Eagles in this game, even though I don't know who's going to win this fucking game, and I wouldn't bet it if I had to.
Just a reminder that the Eagles' offensive line is brilliant and has been really well created. And also the Ravens, have to get that run game going because the Eagles secondary is with Cooper DeJean and Quinion Mitchell is one of the best secondaries in the league. Like they've got one of the best secondaries in the league at rookie level. So that's where they are right now. For me, Jay, give me the Eagles as well as 3-point dogs here. I think the Eagles are going to come out and I think they're going to win this game. I think the biggest thing is people are talking Saquon Barkley versus Derrick Henry, but the biggest difference for me between the Eagles and the Ravens is A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown is going to have a great time playing against that Ravens backfield when they're selling out to take out Saquon Barkley.
I don't disagree.
That's where I think it is. If you've got A.J. Brown and you're thinking of not playing him in fantasy, which why wouldn't you be? I haven't made him a fantasy pick because he's such an obvious one to always play A.J. Brown, but play A.J. Brown this week, I think, going forward. Jay, the Bills are against the 49ers. The Bills are 6-point favorites against the 49ers. Is the market now over-adjusting on the 49ers?
Maybe, because I think the 49ers win this game, but lose this game, but I still think that they cover the 6. So I'm going to take the 49ers in the points, but I still think they're going to lose.
For me, with their injuries, with Trent Williams on one side injured, with Nick Bosa also injured in this game as well, and other injuries that aren't as headliners, though, too, I think the 49ers are going to lose this game. Give me the Bills by 6. I think the Bills' defense is really good. And I think the Bills are now one of the favorites in the AFC. Like, definitely, I think they're probably in that top 4 echelon with the Eagles, the Lions, the Chiefs, and the Bills. That's my top 4 teams in the NFL right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if they. I could totally see the 49ers covering. I'm not betting this game. If I'm anyone, I'm not betting this game. But the Bills win this game, and when I'm that certain that a team wins, give me those points here. Jay, the final game of Sunday is the Broncos as 6-point favorites against the Browns. Jay, have you come round to Bo Nix yet?
No, I still think he's pretty good.
All right, yeah.
But that's what I've said from the beginning. He's pretty good. I don't think he's Drew Brees. You know what I mean? But I think he's pretty good. I think he fits what Sean Payton's doing. So I don't think I've gotten worse or better on Bo Nix. I think he is what I'm channel Denny Green. He is what I thought he was.
I think with Bo Nix, right, in any other draft class, recently, he's a second round pick, and he's playing really well for a second round pick in the draft class. But I don't think he's much more than that. I agree with you, mid-tier quarterback. But if you put him in a really good system like what they've got with Sean Payton, he can dice people up. And I kind of like that about him. I think he's playing good football. And I think the Broncos are playing great football as well. Jay, with the Broncos playing this good of football, I'm going to take the Broncos in this game as 6-point favorites.
Well, you guys are in trouble because I'm taking the Broncos in the 6-2, which means they're going to lose because the Broncos and I have this hate relationship this year.
Fuck's sake, Jay. I thought you were going to take the Browns in this one. God damn it. No, I agree with you. I just don't. I think the Broncos defense completely stifles the Browns offense. And I think the Browns defense of last year would have been enough, but not the Browns defense of this year. So
how the fuck is that a prime time? Okay, forget it. There's no way to answer that. But
when was that ever a prime time game? All right, the Browns got injuries and the Broncos are better than we thought they were. When was that ever a prime time game?
How is that not Eagles Ravens?
Yeah, how is that not Eagles Ravens? Oh, I understand the Bills 49ers. The 49ers have taken a load of injuries, so that makes sense to me. But how's it not? Yeah, that makes sense. That's weird. Jay, we've got 5 minutes before we check out of here for the game. Should we quickly go through our fantasy players to watch going on here? I'll quickly do my 3, and then you can do your 3 as well while you're getting them up. For me, Jay, my fantasy players to watch are George Pickens going up against that Bengals secondary, Puka Nacua going up against the Saints, and Mike Evans going up against the Panthers. They're 3 players that I think are on the cusp of a lot of people's flex to bench place. Play them 100%.
So I have 3 receivers for you this week. 1, Mike Evans. Watch out, Mike Evans. Put him in; he'll be fine. There's this lad down in LA. I think going to have to make a lot of plays because J.K. Dobbins is out. So Lad McConkey, and then Nico Collins. Nico Collins puts up huge points today. If you have Nico, play him. Nico will put up tons of points for you in your.
I have Lad McConkey on my bench, and I've got George Pickens in the team. I've got DK Metcalf in the team, and I'm struggling. I've got Jonathan Taylor at the flex. Lad McConkey over Jonathan Taylor against the Patriots. Difficult decisions.
Now, this is just me, and I'm not telling you what to do. I would play him over Metcalf, but that's me.
Yeah, I know. It's difficult. I'm gonna keep it as it is. We've only got a couple of minutes, so I'm gonna keep it as it is going forward. Jay, I'll quickly flash the Brits picks on the screen as well, just so people can see where my brain is at this moment in time. I'll put them up there. This is my top teams in the NFL, the top 10. Yes, Jay, my heart is dying. The Eagles are at 1. So it's Eagles at 1, Lions at 2, Kansas City at 3, Buffalo at 4, Ravens at 5, Vikings at 6, Steelers at 7, Commanders at 8, Broncos at 9. And as I went through that show, I wish I put the Chargers at 10, but the Packers are at 10, and then Chargers probably should be at 10.
All right. So I would flip 5 and 6, and I would flip 9 and 10. But other than that, I have no problems with what you have going on.
Hey, that's all right. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I just think the Eagles have. My problem with the Eagles going into the season is one, I hate the Eagles, and two, they
I
hadn't played anyone good. And
I would
recently they've
not have been
playing
mad
some-
though on any order you put the top three.
Yeah, I think the top three is the top three. I think then that's the next tier of the Bills, Ravens, and Vikings, and the Steelers probably are on a tier there, and then 8 to about 12 swap round as well. Jay, kickoff is about to start. Send us out like you always do.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Hit the like and subscribe. I hope you enjoy your Sunday football. One world, one love. Deuces.